Return the $25,000 you took or get out for good, Mom said, with my brother backing her. My aunt snorted, "This is a trap, you've always hated my son." I just pushed the video of him at the office safe across the table. And saw her eyes flicker. She leaned in closer, voice low. "If you think this is over, you're wrong." They called me cheap labor with a wedding ring, and my wife stood right there, smirking. That moment didn't just break me, it forged something new. Something far more dangerous. The air in Robert and Susan's living room buzzed with drunken laughter and the clinking of glasses for Chloe's birthday. But I wasn't celebrating, I was leaning against the kitchen counter, sweat still stinging my eyes from a bathroom repair, trying to disappear. I'd just spent the first hour of the party, my own wife's cousin's birthday, sweating in a tiny, dusty bathroom, fixing a light. Robert cornered me about the second we walked in. When I finally came downstairs, not a soul noticed I was gone. I felt invisible, just another piece of furniture. Then I heard Robert, loud enough for half the guests to hear, "Ethan? Oh, he's not family. He's just cheap labor with a wedding ring." A few chuckles. My blood ran cold. Cheap labor with a wedding ring. That phrase echoed, louder than the music. My gaze snapped to the couch where Olivia sat beside him. She wasn't laughing, not outright, but she wasn't frowning either. Just a tiny, knowing smirk. Like it was an inside joke she was proud to be in on. Something inside me cracked. Not a loud, dramatic break, but a silent, irreversible shift. Like realizing the chair you've sat on for years was always broken, you just finally felt the wobble. I didn't say a word. I didn't confront anyone. I drained my soda, walked back in, pretending I heard nothing. Olivia smiled, leaned into my side like everything was fine. I smiled back, but inside, I was already gone. The next weekend, I made sure they all knew it. Not from me, but from her best friend, Sarah, via a photo of me lounging at a resort next to Olivia's boss, David. And that was just the beginning. The strange thing was how easily I acted normal afterward. Muscle memory, I guess. I kissed Olivia goodnight, watched a movie, said I was tired, though I barely slept. All night, I replayed that smirk, the smug curve of her lips as Robert turned me into a punchline. Not a nervous laugh, not a fake chuckle to diffuse tension, just that knowing smirk, the kind you give when you believe something is true. That image haunted me more than the insult. I held my tongue. I wanted to see if she'd apologize, admit it was wrong, even defend me. But the next morning, she acted like nothing happened. Made coffee, then asked if I could check Kevin's jammed garage door. I nodded, said I'd see. I didn't say, "Your dad called me cheap labor last night," while you smirked like it was true. I just sipped my coffee, told her I'd check my schedule. That's when it hit me, I wasn't a husband. I was a tool, a resource, a convenient utility. To be summoned, borrowed, put away without gratitude. That week, I started watching, really watching. And once that mental floodgate opened, I couldn't unsee it. Susan always introduced me as Handyman Ethan, never my son-in-law, never Olivia's husband, always with a little laugh, like it was a charming nickname. But it was a label. A category. I wasn't a person to them. I was a walking wrench, with a bank account they didn't have to drain. And Olivia? She never said thank you anymore. Not for repairs, not for favors, not even for fixing her tire or unclogging the drain she jammed with half a bottle of conditioner. In the beginning, every little thing earned a smile, a kiss. "You're the best, babe. What would I do without you?" Now? Nothing. Just expectation. One night, returning late from a real client job, not family, I found Olivia on the phone with Susan. She didn't hear me. I froze in the doorway, listening. "He said he's swamped this weekend, but I'm sure he'll do it." "He always does." "I mean, what else is he going to do? Watch football?" "A beat." "No, he won't argue. He likes feeling useful. I slipped back out before she saw me. Sat in my car for 15 minutes, just breathing. It wasn't the words. It was the absolute certainty in her voice, the casual, bored confidence that I'd always say yes. That I needed to feel useful. Like I had no spine. Like I was some broken man desperate for praise. It was a gut punch of heartbreak mixed with blinding clarity. Like watching someone you love cheat, not with another person, but with a convenient idea of you. They were in love with that idea. Not me. The real me was just in the way. That weekend, I told Olivia I had an out-of-town job, 2 hours away, Friday to Sunday. She didn't even ask about the client. Just, hopefully you're back for Dad's deck next week. He's already bought materials. Bought materials. Translation, my time was booked, without asking. I smiled, I'll let you know. Then I packed a bag, grabbed my cousin's spare key in Sarasota, and drove south. No tools, no work clothes. Just a change of scenery. That's when I called Sarah. Olivia's best friend. Her work bestie, really, but they were tight. I always liked Sarah. Sharp, funny, brutally honest but never cruel. She was the only one in Olivia's circle who saw me as more than a guy with a toolbox. Crucially, she'd just transferred departments, now working directly under Olivia's boss, David. David and I met once at a party. Older, silver-haired, ex-military. Ran his department tight, but always calm and friendly. That night, he hadn't asked about home repairs. He asked about me, my ideas, my projects. He even said, "You've got the kind of mind that could build empires if someone gave you a bigger blueprint." I never forgot that line. No one in Olivia's family had ever said anything close. So, I called Sarah, told her I was in Sarasota with a weird idea. She said yes instantly. David was there too, company resort weekend. "Swing by for a drink," she texted. "It'll be fun." It was more than fun. It was clarifying. We talked, laughed, played cards by the pool. David remembered everything we'd discussed, asked if I'd ever considered a broader market. Sarah joked about stealing me for office renovations. We took a photo, the three of us, lounge chairs, sunglasses, drinks. Simple, nothing inappropriate, but it sent the perfect message. I didn't post it. Sarah did. To Olivia. No caption. Just the image. Her husband, mysteriously unavailable, smiling poolside next to her boss. I turned my phone off. The next few days were blissfully quiet. I stayed at my cousin's, soaking in the silence. No calls, no errands, no guilt. When I finally turned my phone on, it exploded, 13 missed calls from Olivia, 2 from Susan, 1 from Robert, and texts that swung from casual to frantic. Jenna just sent me something weird. "Where are you? Are you with my boss? Explain now." I didn't reply. Monday morning, I made breakfast, sat at the table, and waited. Olivia emerged, looking wrecked. Red eyes, messy hair, her voice sharp, shaky. "What was that?" I sipped my coffee. "What was what?" She stared, like I'd slapped her. "You disappeared. You lied about work. You went to a resort with my best friend and my boss. What are you trying to do?" I tilted my head. "I told you I was booked. I needed a break. Figured it was time I did something useful." Her jaw clenched. "Don't be a smartass." I cut her off. Calm. Steady. "You've never once said thank you." She blinked. "What?" "For the years. The work. The time. All the Saturdays I gave up. All the projects I did for free. Your dad calls me cheap labor. You smirk. Your mom parades me around like her handyman. You treat my skills like an extension of your dad's tool shed. And when I take a weekend for myself, suddenly I'm the villain? Her expression cracked for a split second, then went cold. It was one comment. He was joking. No, I said, setting my mug down. He wasn't. And neither were you. She crossed her arms. So what? You're getting back at me by flirting with Sarah in front of my boss? That's your revenge? I looked her dead in the eyes. That wasn't revenge. And it wasn't. Not yet. But things were in motion. Wheels turning. People watching. And what none of them knew, not Olivia, not Robert, not Susan, was that I'd spent the last month quietly inventorying everything: bank accounts, property titles, texts, favors, unpaid jobs, Robert's family business he tried to rope me into, conveniently keeping it in his name while I did the work. I had let myself become a doormat. Yes. But even doormats have limits. And the moment I heard cheap labor with a wedding ring, mine hit. I was done being their tool. Now, I was going to show them what happens when the tool decides to build something for himself. And tear down everything else along the way. But first, I had to keep playing my role a little longer. Just long enough to make them comfortable. Because the higher they stand, the harder they fall. I was just getting started. Part of me still clung to the hope Olivia might snap out of it. That maybe, just maybe, she'd realize the depth of the wound, come to me, voice trembling, eyes soft, whisper, "I'm sorry." I didn't know. That she'd want to fix it. But that moment never came. Instead, I got silence. Cold, distant silence. The kind that fills a room like fog and never lifts. She stopped texting. Stopped making dinner. We moved like ghosts, speaking only when necessary. No arguments, no shouting. Just withdrawal. We tiptoed on ice, waiting to see who'd fall first. 3 weeks after the resort, she shattered it completely. It started with Robert. I came home late from a real job, not family. Walked into the kitchen, kicked off my boots. Olivia sat at the table, laptop open, that familiar, tight smirk on her face. She didn't look up. Dad's got a big project coming up. Renovating the rental units. I paused. Okay. Her eyes, when they met mine, were cold. He wants you to head it. I blinked. No. She raised an eyebrow. No. I'm not working for him anymore. She scoffed, like I was a child. He's offering you 10% of the profits. I laughed. Once. The same profits he never shows anyone? The same ones he hides until tax season then claims there's nothing left? She didn't flinch. It's still a good opportunity. For who? I asked. For me to waste more nights and weekends? For your family to squeeze more labor, smiling to my face while mocking me behind my back? She flinched then. Just a tiny tremor. Enough. I leaned on the counter. Tell Robert no. I'm done. She slammed the laptop shut. Fine. I'll tell him. But she didn't. The next day, Robert called me himself. Heard you're playing hard to get, he chuckled, like this was some sitcom. I told him straight, I'm out. No more favors. No more free labor. No more pretending I'm part of a family that only sees me as a hammer with a heartbeat. His response? A nasty little chuckle. If you're not in the family business, maybe it's time we reconsider your place in the family. Click. He hung up. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, the dial tone mocking me. For the first time, I felt truly angry. Not annoyed, not resentful. Livid, not just at him, but at her. Because she let it happen, again and again. Now they were threatening to cut me out like a temp worker who asked for too many sick days. I didn't call her. Didn't yell. Didn't storm home. Instead, I drove to my friend Mark's place. We'd known each other since high school, worked construction for years before he got into property investment. Smart, quiet, always listened more than he spoke. He hated how Olivia's family treated me, biting his tongue every time I showed up late, covered in dust from Robert's fence or a rental's pipes. That night, I told him everything, the comment, the smirk, the call. He just sat there, sipping a beer. Finally, he asked, "You ever think about how much equity you've built for them?" "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "You've added value. Repaired rentals, renovated kitchens, built decks, plumbing, electrical. That's tens of thousands in labor, and you didn't charge a dime." I nodded. "Yeah. You got receipts?" That stopped me. "Receipts, photos, texts, before and afters? Anything that proves you did the work?" I slowly nodded again. "Yeah, I think I do." He smiled. "Start digging. It's time you made some of that equity work for you." That conversation rewired my brain. I stopped waiting for apologies. Stopped hoping Olivia would change. I started documenting every job, every house, every hour. I dug through old phone backups, found texts from 3 phones ago, photos of Robert's cracked foundation before I fixed it. Screenshots of Susan's texts thanking me for saving them $6,000 after her HVAC. Even a video of me, covered in mud, hauling broken fence posts from Kevin's yard. I made a folder. Contributions, I called it. Every night, it grew. Then came the real betrayal. A Saturday. I'd just returned from a paying client, not family. Noticed the garage open, Olivia's car gone. Errands, I thought. I walked in, set my gear down, and something caught my eye. Our shared filing cabinet. Unlocked. We kept documents there, taxes, property records, bank statements. And my business files. I'm old school, I keep paper backups for permits, quotes, invoices. I opened it, and my stomach twisted. Half my business folder was gone. Not shuffled, not moved. Gone. I called her. No answer. Again, voicemail. I tried to stay calm. Taxes? Insurance? Then I saw an envelope on the kitchen counter. No name, no note. A landmine. Inside, copies, not originals, of 3 invoices I'd written for Robert's properties. But they had Robert's name as contractor, not mine. I stood, the room tilting. Robert's name, Robert's company, Robert's logo. My work, my handwriting, barely covered by clumsy digital edits. I knew that logo. The same one on the family business paperwork he'd waved at me, trying to rope me in. The one I refused to sign under. He'd taken my work, passed it off as his own, retroactively. Someone went through my files, found those invoices, rewrote them. It became sickeningly clear. Olivia had given them to him. She took my files. Gave them to Robert. He used them to fabricate his value on my work. I sat, stunned. This wasn't just disrespect. This was theft, forgery, fraud. Betrayal from the one person who was supposed to have my back. When Olivia finally came home, I said nothing. Not at first. I watched her walk in, like nothing. She dropped her purse, kicked off shoes, stretched. Then she froze. She saw the open cabinet, the missing envelope. She knew. Her face went pale, then red, then blank. "You went through my things," she said. I laughed. It was a broken sound, like a cough. Your things? That's my business folder. My invoices. Silence. Did you give them to Robert? Still nothing. Did you give my work to your father so he could forge records and claim I was just a hired hand? That landed. She winced. She started. No. No, just. Tell me the truth. Her voice barely a whisper. He needed them for the loan application. I stared. What loan? For the renovations. He said the bank needed proof of past projects. So he took mine and put his name on them. She looked down. It's still the same work, the same family. Something broke then. Not loud, but quiet. Like stepping on something soft and realizing, too late, it was living. I walked out, got in my truck, and drove. That night, I didn't sleep or eat. I just sat in my truck outside Mark's place, watching streetlights flicker. At 6 a.m., he opened the door, saw me, didn't ask a thing. Just handed me coffee. So, what's the move? I looked up. For the first time in years, I felt focused, not helpless. She took everything I gave her, I said. My time, my work, my trust. Now she wants to rewrite the story, so I was never part of it. Mark nodded slowly. Then we rewrite it back. What I did next made every fake invoice, every unpaid favor, every smug smirk look like child's play. But I'll get to that. First, I had to play my part a little longer. I wasn't building their dream anymore. I was building the blueprint for their collapse. My lowest point came a week after the invoices. Not the papers themselves, paper can be replaced. It was how everything else crumbled around it, like dominoes. Clients who'd trusted me blindly suddenly wanted references I didn't have, or canceled because a neighbor said Robert handles all that now. Word travels fast in a small town when someone with a loud voice decides to talk. I lost 2 steady contracts. One client said they were uncomfortable hiring me due to family dispute rumors. That hurt more than the money. My name, rebranded overnight to unreliable. I had no control. Olivia grew colder. Not dramatic, but a surgical removal of warmth. No more coffee cup set aside, no fridge notes, no little calls. Nights were the worst. We shared a bed, but with the distance of strangers who once knew each other's breathing. Waking up, listening for the creak of her side, felt like standing on a cliff edge, wind whispering how far I'd fallen. Grief, yes, a slow, aching hollow. But beneath it, a quiet fury, steadier than grief. Like gravity had shifted. I saw the ground clearly for the first time. Money got tight. Unexpected vet bills for our dog, new equipment, losing those clients, my savings vanished faster than expected. Nights, I'd stare at my bank app, trying to make the math work. I canceled a weekend with Mark, even though I desperately needed the break, because my truck needed repairs and the mechanic wanted cash. I started saying no to small favors for people I actually liked. Pumping a neighbor's gas, fixing a stuck window. Each no brought a sting, but also a fierce relief. Like pruning a vine that had been strangling me. One afternoon, I went to Robert's rental, pretending to check the foundation. I knew he'd be suspicious, but I needed to see how he was showcasing the work. What I found made my chest ache. The freshly painted kitchen he'd boasted about at a contractor's meetup? My work. The sink, my exact specs. The tile pattern, my choice last summer. Even the faint white marks where I'd sanded too close. A framed photo in the living room showed him and Susan smiling. I asked about it. He waved me off. You did a fine job, Ethan. Glad you could help. He said it like a compliment. It was a lie. But everyone clapped. My hands were shaking when I left. The personal pain cut deeper than the damaged reputation. My mom called, asking if I was okay. I downplayed it. Friends suggested I crash with them, take a break. I refused. Leaving felt like admitting defeat. But I was tired in a way I'd never been. Not just physically, but morally. Every day meant dressing myself in restraint, patience, swallowing more indignity. I missed the me who'd tinker in the garage for fun, who'd lose himself until midnight because the solution was its own reward. Now, every tool felt like a ledger entry in someone else's account. The worst hit came on a rainy Tuesday. I'd finished a small deck for a new client later than planned. Driving up our lane, Olivia's car was gone. On the kitchen table, a thick brown envelope, my name in her handwriting. My heart seized before I opened it. Inside, a packet labeled separation agreement. Not just a form, but a full stack of paperwork, meticulously prepared, as if they'd planned every step without me. It even included a draft social media post outlining how she'd been used by me and how her family had tried to be supportive. Clinical. Cold. It read like a rehearsed narrative, made official before a single conversation. Up until then, I'd imagined so many endings, me leaving dramatically, boxes, slammed door, calm apologies leading back to normal, a slow fade to roommates. But this packet, this preemptive betrayal, felt like a rock through a window I didn't know existed. It was a challenge. And for the first time, I saw how far they'd go to rewrite reality. They wanted me to be the problem. Not Olivia's silence, not Robert's theft. Me. The man who'd spent years walking to their houses with a toolbox and a smile was now a threat needing neutralization. I did the strangest thing. I sat down and wrote a letter. Not for Olivia. Not for Robert. For myself. A single page, notarizing a covenant with the universe. I will not beg. I will not be gaslit into apologizing for being me. I will protect my work. I will not be erased. I sealed it, tucked it into my truck's glove box like a talisman. Silly and real, all at once. A ritual, maybe. A declaration of an end, or a beginning. I started organizing evidence. Not deleting, but archiving. Photos to new drives, texts backed up, spreadsheets of every hour on Robert's rentals, hours that, valued properly, would make his 10% payout look like pocket change. I contacted the local trade association, pulling permit records listing me as the contractor on jobs Robert now claimed. I walked into the town clerk's office with documents and coffee, asking for copies, answering questions. Reclaiming my past. The clerks were indifferent, just filing machines. But their neutrality was powerful. It meant facts existed outside their family story. Meanwhile, Olivia's behavior grew stranger. Almost theatrical. Leaving her phone face up with a paused podcast that had nothing to do with us. Folding laundry, carefully placing a shirt with my initials where I'd see it, as if testing me. Once, she invited Susan over, staged a coincidental discussion about marriages fading when people want different things. I let them talk. Answered politely when asked about us. No accusations. I used to think confrontation was revelation. Now, silence was strategy. I played my part precisely, neutral smile at family dinners, letting them believe I was crumbling if it made them feel victorious. Some nights, I burned to teach Olivia a lesson, show her the cost of her choices. But as the rage simmered, clarity took hold. The more I cataloged, the more I planned, the more I knew, an emotional outburst would ruin everything. If I wanted to rebuild a life without them, or one where they answered for their actions, it needed proof and timing. I rehearsed conversations in the mirror. Not to bait them, but to prepare for the legal and social truth. I consulted a lawyer, but didn't hire one yet. Premature. I practiced patience. It was the hardest part. I'd always been a fixer, loving the instant gratification of a leak stopped, a tile perfectly set. This demanded a craftsman who measured twice, cut once, in life. One evening, late autumn crept into the air, leaves skittered like old bills across the driveway. I sat at the kitchen table with three things: my laptop open to contributions, a list of clients I'd helped, and a small recorder. I hit record. Spoke into it like an affidavit, detailing each job, dates, hours, chats with Robert, the times he helped after I'd finished. Documenting conversations, voice doubts, cataloging facts. Absurd, talking to myself in a house that once felt safe, but necessary. If they wanted to rewrite history, I'd produce a new narrative. Documents, witnesses, proof. Just as I finished, clicked it off, the front door opened. Olivia stepped in, quieter than usual. She looked utterly exhausted, a way I hadn't seen. Maybe their script was heavy even for her. She sat across from me, avoiding the folder. Finally, you can't do this. You can't make this a thing. What thing? I asked. The whole us versus them. The paperwork. The digging. It's tearing everyone apart. It's tearing me apart. I didn't ask for this, I said. No, her voice soft, but you started it. Disappearing. Going off with Sarah and David. People are talking. Her eyes flicked toward the window, listening for gossiping tongues. I'm losing my friends. You gave them my invoices, I said. You handed over my work. She flinched, wiped her face like clearing fog. Your invoices helped Dad get the loan, she said quietly. He needed them to show the bank he'd done work before. I thought you'd help him. And probably get me a steady paycheck in his new venture. I finished for her. That's not what happened. She looked at me then, truly measuring me, like checking a car for dents after a hit and run. Ethan, she said, we can fix this. No, I said, surprised by its finality. Not like this. She looked down. For a moment, I saw vulnerability. Not the easy kind, but a raw fear. I'm scared, she admitted. I don't want to lose my family. Then stop helping them steal mine, I said. If you want to keep both, be honest. That's the only way. She stood abruptly, pacing. Then she did something that crossed an unexpected line. She slid the brown envelope toward me, the separation packet. Sign here, she said, voice flat. It'll be cleaner for everyone. I stared at it. The old me, the one who craved peace at any cost, wanted to sign. To trade what remained of our marriage for an end to the noise. But something had fundamentally changed. The months of being overlooked, the theft, the staged pity, the careful erasure, it had shifted my core. Signing would give them everything. My work, my reputation, my narrative. It would let them diminish me on paper, keep all the benefits of my labor without responsibility. I slid the envelope back. I can't, I said. Not like that. She made a sound, maybe anger, maybe sorrow. Sometimes they're the same. Then what do you want, Ethan? What do you want me to do? I looked at her, truly seeing the stranger across from me. The house hummed with the refrigerator, the distant rain. The evening settled into a hush. I could try to fix this with conversation, compromise, patience. Or I could do something else entirely. Something that would drag the truth into daylight. I had evidence, witnesses, a burning sense of purpose. But evidence alone wasn't enough. Timing and exposure were everything. Move too soon, I'd lose my leverage. Too late, I'd lose everything. Olivia watched. If you don't sign, what then? She challenged. Are you going to take Dad to court? Ruin both our families? I set my jaw. I'm going to tell the truth, I said. And I'm going to make sure the truth has receipts. She swallowed. Do you even know what you're asking? The fallout? I do, I replied. And I'm ready for it. She stood, breathing fast. For the first time, panic, not just calculation. This choice wasn't just a legal tactic or petty revenge. It would redefine us. Expose more than invoices. Force everyone to choose between comfortable lies and cold reality. I slid the recorder into my pocket, a quiet dagger of proof. Grabbed my keys. Before walking out, before the first move of the plan, I opened the glove box, retrieved the envelope I'd written myself, and tucked it into contributions. It felt ceremonial. An oath. I paused at the doorway, hand on the knob. For months, I'd felt a dark, terrifying peace. Standing on the edge of an action that couldn't be undone. Outside, the rain had stopped. A thin moon cut through the clouds, sharp and indifferent. I turned the knob. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A short message, "We know what you've been doing. Stop now or things get worse." I closed the door slowly, listening to my own breath. The game was on. They'd noticed. When you're underestimated long enough, it changes you. Compresses ambition into something sharp, dense, like a diamond. After months as a background character in my own life, I gained something rare, clarity. Not just about them, but about who I was without them. That text, "We know what you've been doing. Stop now or things get worse," I didn't panic. I stared at it, then chuckled. It wasn't a threat. It was fear. Someone was nervous. And fear meant I was finally visible. Someone noticed I'd stopped playing my part. Time to accelerate. First, I moved. Not out of the house yet, too obvious. I started sleeping in the guest room. Olivia asked why. I said I snored. She nodded, but we both knew. The glue was cracking, but I wouldn't just walk away and let her stage a pity narrative. If this was war, I'd draw the battlefield. I went back to work, not just on jobs, but on myself. I rebranded. New name, logo, website. Shedding the Ethan fixes it mockery, I launched Hollow Ridge Restoration. Clean, professional, focused on full renovations. I hired a designer off Reddit, HGTV level branding. Bold lines, deep greens, high-end aesthetics. Business cards, embroidered polos. Then, the portfolio. Using my collected photos, before and afters of Robert's rentals, Susan's sunroom, Kevin's butchered deck I'd rebuilt. But this time, clear captions, kitchen remodel, labor provided by Ethan Hollow. Unpaid, materials reimbursed. Work falsely attributed to R&M Properties in later filings. Not public yet. I compiled a 26-page digital booklet, side-by-side comparisons, emails, texts, invoices, permits. I sent it to one person, David, Olivia's boss. He called that afternoon. "Ethan," he said, "this is impressive, and honestly, disturbing." I told him I wasn't suing or blackmailing. Just showing the truth. Quietly, calmly, respectfully. I wasn't trying to blow up Olivia's job. Just wanted her boss to know who leveraged his name. He thanked me, then asked something unexpected. Ever thought about expanding? Commercial spaces? Office redesigns? My heart skipped. That was my dream. But Olivia's family had convinced me to stay small, local, safe. Bigger contracts were too risky to Robert, a waste of energy to Susan. Why bother when you've got all the business you need? Except it wasn't business. It was chains. Now, I had options. David introduced me to an interior architecture firm needing a reliable contractor for small business builds. Their first job, a downtown bakery renovation. Not huge, but public, high traffic. The kind of project people talked about. I took it. Hired 2 trusted friends from my early construction days. We worked. 3 weeks later, I had 3 more requests: a gym, a coffee shop, a co-working space. All from David's network. Just like that, my name stopped being a whisper. It became a conversation. At home, the tension with Olivia simmered. She knew I'd shifted. I came home later, cleaner, sharper, more focused. No arguments, no volunteered information, no questions about her parents or their projects. Once, she asked, "Where have you been all day?" "Work," I said. "You look different." "I feel different." She stared too long, then walked away. The distance between us widened, beyond her control. She used to pull strings: guilt, obligation, family. Now, those strings hung limp. She yanked, nothing moved. I wasn't anchored anymore. I finally reached out to a lawyer, a real one. Michelle. Quiet, surgical demeanor, every room felt like a courtroom. I handed her my evidence, asked to explore every legal option without going public. 3 days later, she called back with a list: unpaid labor on private properties, misrepresentation in loan documents with forged invoices, trademark infringement on my name in Robert's company materials, potential slander from Olivia's drafted separation post. "This isn't just personal, Ethan," Michelle said. "This is strategic defamation. They're trying to erase your professional identity, absorb your labor footprint." That's when I understood. They weren't just cutting me from the family. They were replacing me. Professionally, personally. Reassigning credit, reallocating blame, rewriting the story so I'd never existed. My chest tightened, not from fear, but focus. I filed the paperwork to incorporate Hollow Ridge Restoration as an LLC, began copywriting my original logo and tagline from "Ethan Fixes It." If they wanted a war of names, I was bringing receipts. Then, something strange. Sarah reached out. Asked to meet at a cafe, had something to share. I trusted her. She was the only one who'd ever looked me in the eye, talked to me like a person, not a tool. We sat. She slid her phone across the table. "They've been planning a narrative," she said. "I thought you should see this." It was a group chat. Screenshots: Susan, Olivia, Robert. Chat title: Family Matters. The messages were damning. "If he makes noise, we frame it as a bitter ex thing. No one will care what a contractor says once it's public. He doesn't have the reach. We release Olivia's side first. Ethan won't go nuclear. Make sure he signs before the holidays. People are too distracted then." My stomach dropped. Not just strategy. Manipulation. They weren't preparing for fallout, they were designing it. I looked at Sarah. "Why are you showing me this?" She leaned forward. "Because I've seen how they treat people. You deserve to know what's coming." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." She hesitated. "And because I think you're going to win." That stuck with me. That night, I cleared out the guest room. Not just to make space. I turned it into a mini studio: ring light, camera, whiteboard, clean backdrop. I wouldn't play the victim. I'd tell my story before they told theirs. I wrote a script. Calm, professional, no insults. Just a clear, fact-driven breakdown: unpaid labor, false documents, family pressure, a years-long cycle of manipulation. I blurred names, kept it anonymous, but specific enough for anyone who knew us to recognize the timeline. I saved it. My bulletproof vest. The final piece. I bought a small ad in the local Builder Association newsletter, a monthly dispatch to every contractor, permit officer, architect. New name, same hands, same ethics. Hollow Ridge Restoration, built on skill, not shortcuts. My email, new business number. Within a week, 9 new inquiries. Olivia noticed. Saw the emails, the polos, a client's handwritten "thank you for saving our business" card on the porch. She didn't ask questions. But one morning, she stood in the kitchen. They're going to be angry. I sipped my coffee. Let them be. She hesitated. You don't want peace? I looked at her. Peace isn't built on silence, Olivia. It's built on respect. She didn't reply. In that silence, I realized I wasn't hers anymore. Not her fixer, not their errand boy, not a man waiting for scraps of validation. I was a builder, a business owner, a man with proof. And I was almost ready. Not for revenge. For release. But first, one more move. A final reveal that would flip the script. And when I pulled that trigger, their story, polished for months, would shatter like cheap glass. The move was small, surgical. No yelling, no vindictive posts, no cheap theatrics. A proper reveal lets facts speak for themselves. First, I handed Michelle every scrap, asked her to do what I couldn't without seeming petty, package it seriously. She transformed my messy folder into a tenet of legal logic. Contributions became an exhibit list. Texts, photos, permits, a timeline. Forged invoices highlighted, dated, matched against bank records Michelle subpoenaed. She added witnesses, clients who'd paid me, a drywall supplier with my receipts, the town clerk confirming permits in my name. I watched her turn my anger into something that could stand in court or on the front page. Next, the banks. Michelle drafted a complaint, loan fraud, misrepresentation, and sent it to the bank funding Robert's renovations. I included photos, contracts with my name first blacked out, then revealed, and a cover letter explaining the fabricated contractor histories. They opened an investigation within days. Step 1, remove the financial foundation. Step 2, reputation. I met quietly with the County Contractor Licensing Board, handed them copies of permits filed under my name versus Robert's sudden ownership changes. The inspector looked at me like I'd pulled too many rabbits from one hat. We get a lot of calls, he said, but this is solid. He promised to audit 2 of Robert's recent projects. Permits, unlike gossip, are logged. Timestamps have teeth. Step 3, preemptive truth. I didn't wait to be pushed. I took the corner myself. Recorded the video I'd rehearsed. Calm, measured, no melodrama. I told the story not as betrayal, but as pure fact, who I was, what I'd done, the invoices attributed to someone else, the matching proof. No names, no tearing anyone down. Just 3 requests: acknowledge the record, return the credit, compensate unpaid labor if necessary. I signed my name, held eye contact with the camera for one long second, and stopped. Handed the footage to Michelle, asking her to hold it in escrow. With those pieces set, I let the dominoes fall, controlled. Michelle filed the complaint, sent a redacted evidence packet to a local investigative reporter I'd met through David months ago. He called. Didn't want sensationalism, wanted accuracy. Dates, permit copies, rebranded invoices. He'd hold the story until the bank's preliminary findings. But if they confirmed any impropriety, it would run fast, clean. Meanwhile, I quietly contacted clients told Robert had done their work. Showed them before and afters, supplier receipts with my name. Asked if they'd confirm. A coffee shop owner, who'd lost my card, smiled. I'll say it to anyone. You saved my opening. Slowly, the chatter shifted. People I'd helped for free suddenly had the words to define it: unpaid labor, misattributed work, a clear pattern. 2 weeks later, the bank called. Their tone was cautious, like stepping around a beehive. There are inconsistencies, the loan officer admitted. We're pausing disbursements on the renovation loan, pending further verification. Vindication surged, but I held back the gloat. This was just leverage. Public accountability was the endgame. That night, with the bank paused and the licensing board requesting a meeting, Michelle gave me the green light. "You don't have to do the video," she said. "But if you want people to hear you before their version, this is the moment." I uploaded it. Not to social feeds first, but to a secure link hosted by the firm. Then, with the reporter and Michelle, on a timed release, we turned the key. The story that ran the next morning wasn't a scream. It was paper, dates, documents, calm reporting that made you feel like you'd missed the obvious for years. "Local contractor alleges family business fraud," the headline read. The lead paragraph laid out the claims: long-term unpaid labor, forged invoices, contested loan documents. My video link was included. The town's initial reaction was messy. Some called my actions harsh. Others, overdue. Robert's sister posted a defensive Facebook rant about family dynamics. A neighbor left a voicemail telling me to stay out of family matters. Olivia texted once, "Why are you doing this?" I didn't answer. I had nothing left to prove to someone who handed me over like a receipt. What mattered were the ripples. The bakery owner posted, "Thank you, Ethan. You saved our lease." The contractor board announced an audit. The bank froze the loan entirely. A local supplier confirmed checks made out to me for materials Robert's company later claimed. The county inspector scheduled site visits. The reporter set up follow-ups, exploring similar misattributed work cases. Sarah texted, "You did good." David called simply, "You did what you had to." Then, something unexpected. A mid-sized construction firm from a nearby county called. They'd seen the article, wanted Hollow Ridge restoration for a commercial build-out in spring. That call changed everything. Payroll, subcontractors, a team finally paid what they deserved. Monthly deposits, not just handshake promises. I sat at my kitchen table that night, the same table where Olivia had pushed that envelope at me. For the first time in ages, I felt steady. Humiliation had been the furnace, work the hammer. Now, sparks flew where I wanted. But the satisfaction was short-lived. At 11:03 p.m., closing my laptop, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then Michelle's name. Calling from the courthouse steps. "Ethan," she said, no greeting, breathless. "You need to get over here." "Why?" "What happened?" "Bank just notified us. They've frozen more than the loan. Internal audit on several accounts. Licensing board found irregular filings for 3 properties. Reporter says Robert's discrediting you with former clients. But that's not all." She paused. "Warrant request in the works. Someone claims your backup drive has irregular files tied to their corporate accounts." My chest dropped, tightened. Irregular files? Like what? Could be anything. Could be nothing. But they're moving fast. They want your statement. Get down here. Now. I drove through the sleepy, silvered town, replaying everything. Olivia's smirk, the forged invoices, the long nights backing up evidence. The recorder in my glove box, the letter to myself, the quiet video that shifted public opinion. The weight of the moment felt small, sharp, like a coin in my palm. Pulling into the courthouse parking lot, distant lights flashed. People I'd known from community events stood in hushed groups. I glimpsed Robert across the street, jaw tight, flanked by a suit who'd watched too many legal thrillers. Michelle met me on the steps, coat flapping, eyes hard. "They're angry," she said. "But anger isn't guilt. It's not proof. We have time to control the narrative, but don't underestimate them. People with more to lose get louder." I nodded. "What do I do?" She handed me a small sealed envelope from her briefcase. "Request for your statement. Also, notice of a petition for temporary seizure of your business assets, pending investigation." They're framing you as the disruptor. Be careful who you trust. The metal in my hand felt heavy. I thought of the recorder, my letter, the layered backups hidden where Olivia would never look. I'd unknowingly built a chain of custody. Timestamps, witnesses, an attorney who moved faster than their cousins. I was ready to fight. But as I walked toward the courthouse, my phone buzzed. An unknown sender. A blurred photo. My stomach registered it before my brain, Olivia at a dinner table, laughing. Beside her, someone unexpected. Robert, smiling, on his phone, a document open, my handwriting visible. I swallowed, looked at Michelle. We go now, I said. She nodded. We walked into the hallway, fluorescent lights humming, smelling of old paper and coffee. The next steps would decide everything. I took a breath, felt the evidence in my pocket like a small, heavy stone, and stepped forward. The courthouse hall was quiet, yet pulsed with tension. Distant hum of voices, heels clacking, an occasional chair squeak. It smelled sterile, paper, ink, coffee. A place where truth was either buried or dragged into light. Michelle led, heels deliberate, face like marble. I followed, the envelope in my pocket heavy. Outside the meeting room, through frosted glass, silhouettes. Robert, arms crossed, leaning back like he owned the place. Olivia, stiff, unreadable. She didn't look toward the door. Did she know I was there? Did she care? Ethan, Michelle murmured, this is where you reclaim the narrative. Don't go in angry. Go in clear. Calm. I nodded. No nervousness. Just readiness. They didn't expect records. Didn't expect a lawyer who built cases backward. They certainly didn't expect control. I walked in. Robert's expression twitched, a fleeting unease before his usual smug bravado. Well, look who decided to show, he chuckled, as if months of conflict were a misunderstanding. I didn't answer. Instead, I placed a thick folder of hard copies on the table. Labeled, dated, indexed. Invoices, photos, emails, material receipts, permits, all with my name, not his. The clerk blinked. The bank's rep leaned forward. Olivia swallowed, looked down. For the next hour, Michelle walked them through every detail like a surgeon. No raised voice. She didn't need to. By the end, no one was smiling. The court froze Robert's accounts. The licensing board announced a formal audit of R&M properties. The bank, once neutral, filed an internal fraud alert. Then, the final nail. Michelle slid a separate document across the table toward Olivia. A petition for no-fault divorce. With a financial claim for 6 years of unpaid labor contributions, citing misrepresentation, forgery, reputational damage. Backed by notarized statements, digital timestamp trails, witness lists. Olivia looked up at me. For the first time in weeks. No tears. No rage. Just a slow nod, like someone watching a structure collapse in real time. She signed. Walking out, the sky was soft, overcast. The wind cool. Distant traffic, a sound from another life. Michelle turned. It's done. Legally, at least. No, I breathed deep. Now it starts. Because revenge, I realized, isn't destruction. It's restoration. Reclaiming your name, your time, your story. I'd done all three. A year later, Hollow Ridge restoration boomed. 5 full-time employees, a client backlog, my own office. Windows overlooking a town that finally knew who I was. David's company became a regular client. Sarah visited often, not just for business, friendship built on respect survives fire. Olivia, last I heard, moved in with Susan. Robert's properties were under new management. The bank called in the loan. The family business quietly dissolved. She never reached out. I didn't need her to. I hadn't just walked away. I'd built my exit brick by brick. When they tried to burn the bridge, I paved a road instead. One that led me forward. One where I never picked up a wrench for anyone who didn't deserve it. Not again. Looking back, knowing what I know now, what would you have done differently from the start?